Welcome, everyone. Hi, my name's Sean Duggan. Welcome to the Basis Bootcamp, our first session for winning with YouTube. Uh, Very excited to have you with us today. Robert, do you want to go to the slide two and we'll get
Absolutely.
going? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Duggan. I oversee political advertising on the campaigns and causes team, vice president of campaigns and causes at Basis. I, for background, do a quick intro. I joined the company in September from my own consulting company. I worked in the campaigns and political space for going back to 2011. I started the vertical at Pandora and then SiriusXM, and I basically you've been in the media and advertising space for 25 years. Super excited about this session, and yeah, I'll kick it over to my colleagues. Robert first.
Amazing. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I'm glad to be here today. And today we're going to, of course, discuss YouTube ad options for election and political ads. So I'm Robert Kurtz. I'm a business outcomes partner here at Basis. I'm in my seventh year, which is crazy. It's gone by so fast here at Basis specifically. And actually, before I moved into this role of digital strategy, I led the internal search team here, obviously managing all Google products such as paid search and YouTube ads. And before coming to Basis, I was actually at the largest full service independent agency in the United States, the Richards Group, where I also led the search and YouTube practice. So lots of experience kind of with nonprofits and tentpole brands. But enough about myself. Let me pass it over to AJ.
Hi, yeah, I'm AJ Carrillo on the Candidates Causes team. I work with Sean. I've been at Basis almost 9 years now, and before that, I was at another DSP. But way back in my career, I was a campaign manager for about a decade on races around the country, and I think one of my biggest races was in 2006. So I pulled off what was considered probably the biggest upset of that cycle for House, and that was kind of when I learned the power of digital advertising and the potential for it. And it was definitely critical for us to win that primary and the general election. And we were using everything from Facebook at that time to YouTube, including buying search ads. And yeah, we could just see like how powerful it was. And today it's like the default that what campaigns have to use. And with that, I'll kick it back to Sean.
Great. So I'm going to drop a few questions in here to get us going, guys, for some engagement. We will, just some housekeeping. We will be taking questions. We have about 35 minutes of content that we'll be sharing. Really, Robert and AJ will be doing the majority of the presentation. And we want to keep it interactive, so please feel free to drop into the chat any and all questions. But first, I'm going to kick it off with what have you been watching on YouTube the last 24 hours or, the last week? Feel free to chime in. I will put in, I watched a Lumineers video. I watched a NPR Tiny Desk series yesterday. Geese. But yeah, just to put in there, just curiosity. Okay. Beginner crochet patterns. I love it, Amy. Great. I'm just curious because like for what we'll do is we're going to go through, I will kick it off with some high level insights of, hey, everything YouTube, where it is today in 2026. Then we will get it off to Robert. Robert will really take us through the toolkit. Hey, how do you get started on advertising? Robert has been a Google specialist for a decade. And then we'll go to AJ taking us through, hey, what's the toolkit? At level setting, this bootcamp series is not going to sound like, hopefully, if it is, please put it in. Hey, Robert, also watching Riven. I peaked the R2 yesterday too. But if this is starting to sound like not to call it out, but I will, if an industry panel, please put in the chat that like unsubscribe because we don't want that. We want this to be straight shooting. Hey, we've been buying YouTube at basis for almost really since the start, and we just want to get to the brass tacks of how you use it. AJ's going to talk about as a practitioner, and then finally we'll wrap up with like, hey, what are the watchouts? Robert's going to go, hey, what do you need to know about getting live with the campaign, and then Q&A. Thank you everybody for the engagement. I love it. Robert, let's kick it off. Okay, so quick about Basis. I joined the company in September. I've actually known Basis and I've worked for Basis going on 15 plus years from way back my early days at Pandora. The way to think about Basis, if you haven't worked with us before, is really what we have is as exemplified by Robert and AJ, who you'll hear from a lot, media experts in different categories, from consumer advertising to political advertising, quick service food. We work with brands to agencies trying to simplify advertising. 24 years ago, that was trying to make local advertising more simple. We've evolved now to, hey, a much bigger media team of experts who are available. We are available. Hey, do you ever have a question, follow up to this? Reach out to us. We're happy to answer your question. And we have a DSP, an award-winning DSP, tremendous amount of technology tools that like, hey, there's a lot of our agency partners who they're experts also in media and like, hey, we just need the tools and we just give them the tools. So that's kind of the snapshot of where we are. We place well over $1 billion in advertising every year, and a good chunk of that is in YouTube. So Robert, you can kick it over the next slide. Okay, so YouTube. Thank you everybody dropping in here. I want to peek here. What else? What everybody's watching? Bad Bunny, Super Bowl commercials. Excellent. YouTube, quick snapshot. It was founded in 2005, acquired in 2006 for about $1.6 billion. Where it is today, they generate about $1.6 billion every week now in ad revenue. So I'm not an investment banker, but that seems to have been a purchase that has paid off for Google. It is pretty incredible when you think of the scale of how it is. This election cycle, it's, ad impact, these numbers are a little squishy because the reality is it's February 12th. We are still early proceedings in this election, but roughly 11 billion or north is going to be spent on this election. CTV is going to be, a big chunk of it. Again, like these are directional numbers, but the biggest share of that will go to YouTube. So when we were thinking about this series and to level set, we are not paid by YouTube. AJ, Robert, were you paid by YouTube for this session? Okay, if we were, I want a cut of it. No, when we were thinking about it, AJ gets all the credit on this. He was like, hey, my clients are asking more about YouTube. We should do something. I'm like, great. You're going to run a session like this. So AJ gets the credit on this, and he's going to be careful about suggesting ideas in the future, I think. But no, we were super stoked about this idea because, hey, what we're like, hey, let's just start with YouTube. Just talk about YouTube for a half hour, how you get started with it, from folks who've never done it to folks who are practitioners of, hey, what are the new things I need to know for 2026? My experience, I left SiriusXM about 2 years ago, start my own consulting practice, and one of my clients was Spotter. Great company, check them out. They work with the top creators of YouTube, one of them being Mr. Beast. That gave me cool points with my kids for about a half hour. Went away fast, but it was eye-opening, quite frankly, just to see when I was working with the Spotter team, just the scale of their creators. For example, everybody on here has heard of Mr. Beast. He was actually in the Super Bowl, I think, for a Salesforce ad. One video drop of his, he drops like several a month, depending on the month. The ratings of that in the US are equivalent to the Final Four NBA final game. It is pretty incredible. Monday Night Football, just to see that scale when it started, I was like, wow, okay. Now, hey, not everybody's Mr. Beast, but again, there are a lot of creators who are generating, scale of audience equivalent to anything that we would have previously thought of like cable television. Pretty incredible. The numbers speak for themselves. I will not stay on this too long. 76% of total registered users in the US are on YouTube every week, and it is across the board. Robert will kind of dive into where they are, but really it's everywhere. I'm watching my Lumineers video here, my R2 video, an old Borat video. I have the viewing habits of a 54-year-old who's in the humor section of a 16-year-old. Anyway, next slide. You can go right in, Robert, just to give you a snapshot of where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And really just want to call out one last thing on this slide that,
Yep.
especially in the United States, TV screens have actually surpassed mobile and desktop in terms of where the usage is happening. So it's across the board, just like Sean said, mobile and whatnot. But TV screens are catching fire in terms of the engagement with this user base.
Snapshot of, top social video platforms. When you look at who can accept and who is accepting political ads as of today, February 12th, Netflix is not accepting it. It really is. It shows you how YouTube is, from a scale perspective, tremendous in terms of reach. Not perfect though. To be really clear, AJ is going to get into it. Is, hey, there's a toolkit that that's very specific to YouTube, from stuff that you could potentially do on Meta platform to a DSP like ourselves, and we'll kind of hit on that of like, hey, okay, audience there, got to be there. Hey, but what about voter targeting? AJ will dive into that. Takeaway on this slide, and for everybody on here, don't feel like you have to take notes like a maniac. It is going to be, we will record this, we will send it out as a follow-up, but this just demonstrates that it's every demographic group. It's like when you hit 76% reach, it's like there's scale at whatever voter target you're trying to reach.
Absolutely.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks, Sean. I think the kind of a good intro. Obviously, YouTube is everywhere all the time. All audiences are there, over, almost 80% of registered voters are continually using YouTube every day. It has massive scale. So we're going to talk through more of the actual ad options that are going to be available. So that way you're able to create not only the right strategy in partnership with us, but the ideal creative to kind of reach and get your message out. So before I do that, I do want to touch really quickly on kind of our expertise and our relationship with Google. So we're a Google Premier partner. So that's the top 1% of spending brands or agencies in the United States. So that gives us a couple of things to make sure that we are really setting ourselves above a lot of the other offerings when it comes to management ads through Google. Of course, we have we have direct lines and reps that we can talk to, human beings, which is a surprise with Google. So when we do run into those troubleshooting issues, we're able to actually pick up the phone and have a conversation instead of rely on bots to review ads or messaging. So that helps a whole lot, especially in quick turn scenarios where we're really looking to get ads up and running ASAP. The whole team is certified in every single offering that Google provides. Of course, really specific to YouTube, both the strategy and execution piece. Alone, when we're talking about just Google, so Sean mentioned we spend $1 billion a year plus in advertising. Just within Google, we're accounting for over $100 million in spend annually for the last almost 10 years. And obviously that continues to grow up based upon the market share of both Google from a search standpoint and YouTube from a video standpoint. And we really kind of come to the table with a consultative mindset when we're looking at the kind of opportunity strategy, go-to-market needs, and really want to be a business partner and make sure that we have the right ads, campaigns, budget in order to reach the right users at the right time. So kicking off a very high-level summary, basically, this is kind of the one-slide snapshot of what we're going to be talking about today, with emphasis more on the YouTube piece here. But this is really what the kind of the basis search team can offer in terms of reaching that targeted voter or opportunity as we go through the political season. So of course there's paid search. You're reaching those hand raisers that are seeking out information. We're not going to talk about that much today, but definitely happy to discuss that in the Q&A or in another session. But with YouTube video, there's a variety of different ways that we can reach our specific audiences. There's YouTube auction inventory, which is kind of the regular YouTube inventory that we have access to serve ads on. That's all the channels you know and love, of course, as well as brands. But then we're able to really extend that further with YouTube Select and YouTube TV. And that's really the more premium content. So the real high visibility creators and brands, in addition to YouTube television, to where we're actually able to really have more of an emphasis and oomph with those ads, really adding those videos either before, during, or after those creator content. And then there are some additional ad opportunities like YouTube audio. YouTube audio and YouTube music is actually one of the largest podcast players available, and it is growing steam like crazy, even on television devices, because a lot of folks are actually watching their podcasts nowadays with the video component. And so we're seeing that skyrocket. And beyond Google, so obviously we have a lot of opportunity with Google, but beyond Google, one of the things that I am most commonly asked is, well, what about Microsoft? What about Bing? And very similar to Netflix, Microsoft does not allow political ads as of today. And so we'll see if that shifts, but really Google is your kind of one-stop shop within that specific environment. But we have a variety of upcoming sessions where we're going to dig deeper into other opportunities to really reach your target audience. So with all of that said, I'm going to go through all of these different video ad placements pretty quickly. And again, you'll get this deck and recording after the fact, but really kind of go through what each of these ad opportunities is to really educate you so you know which one of these is going to fit my target audience best and what is going to drive maybe the most engagement or the most action outside of this digital ecosphere. So starting with in-stream. In-stream basically just means kind of the video ads that are running as you're watching content on YouTube or on your television. So we all know and love the first option. It's that skippable ad YouTube is so famous for. It really gives the user the opportunity to skip the commercial or the ad after about 5 seconds. So that's fantastic. One of the benefits of running this type of video ad is that if a user skips your ad, you don't pay a dime. And so that first 5-10 seconds before they decide to skip is basically just free impressions for your buy. So a great way to really drive some consideration there. But on the other hand, let's say you have a message that you really want to get out and have folks watch all the way through. That's where the non-skippable video ads are going to be fantastic. And this also includes the bumper inventory. So that's the 6-second, very quick ads. Obviously, you don't have the opportunity to skip those either. And they can drive just as much engagement and awareness as some of the 15, 30, or even long form content pieces within the non-skippable ads. And especially within this in-stream environment, we have the ability to run a variety of different lengths. So we do recommend more of those standard lengths, the 6-second bumper ad, the 15, the 30, the 60. But if you have a 38-second spot, we can still run that with no editing or cutting that down needed, which is fantastic. Or if you have a 3-minute spot, that's going to be a fantastic opportunity to run in this in-stream environment as well. One really cool opportunity that is relatively new in the YouTube space is this video sequencing. And so, of course, this is going to be able to reach users and sequentially serve them ads based upon the ad that they've seen prior. So if you have 3 specific ads and you really want to tell that story, we can serve them in that cadence, obviously based upon them seeing the prior video. And if they opt out and they don't want to watch that video, let's say they skip, that's not a problem. We can kind of create another avenue for them just to be, have touch points based on just regular targeting. And then I talked about this briefly on the slide, a couple slides before, but the audio ad, it is basically a regular YouTube video ad experience, except we are serving this ad, if you will, in audio content. It's a fantastic way to be able to get your ad in environments like NPR, all of the major podcast players, where we're not really able to, do that with as much specificity with other podcast players. So it's a great way to drive that overall engagement. And let's say you don't have a video. This is a great way to put a static image and an audio overlay into a quote unquote video environment and still be able to serve in that type of content. So switching gears to in-feed ads. So unlike the in-stream ads that are really running content in video content, the in-feed ads are actually more kind of search and display like, but the opportunity here is still encouraging users to click on the ad and then watch the video that we're promoting. This is fantastic if you really want to be found for specific search terms or overall queries related to a specific type of content or event going on, as well as these ads will actually be served up as recommended ads on the YouTube homepage and kind of the watch this video next type of environment after users are already consuming content that makes sense for us to serve ads in. So this is fantastic. And still, this is bought on more of a cost per impression basis. So we're not paying when users just click on the ad. We're actually only going to be incurring cost when they still finish the video itself. So we definitely see a lot of great engagement here. There can be some premiums in cost just because of that kind of triple qualification of the user. They're basically having to opt in to watch this video, which is fantastic if we're trying to drive really qualified views of a specific video or message. I also want to touch upon shorts. Shorts are pretty new. It's YouTube's new kind of Instagram competitor, if you will. It's gaining steam and becoming a pretty viable competitor to Instagram and TikTok right away. And if you have videos that are performing well in those environments, it's likely going to do amazing in this environment. We can run horizontal, kind of normal video ads in shorts, but as you can see by the example, the experience isn't great. It's not awful, but it's not great. So if you have more of that vertical type ad unit, it's going to perform really well in this short inventory. And if you continue to have questions coming up, love that. We definitely have a section for Q&A at the end and happy to kind of go through all of your questions. I do want to turn our attention from shorts to YouTube Select. So YouTube Select is a little bit different than normal YouTube inventory. I mentioned it earlier, but it's that more premium inventory that we have access to, especially as a Google Premier partner, depending upon the buy sizes. We also have discounted rates that you're going to get through Basis that you won't get through anybody else. Again, just kind of based on that buying power. But this allows us to really target that high quality influencer or creator or even brand. And we do that by targeting lineups. So we have lineups that can target the top 100 artists in terms of a kind of music and entertainment standpoint. We can do top creators, popular content, sports, music, fitness, families, entertainment, automotive, etc. So lots of good fits there. There's even more than what I have listed on the screen. But probably the most important one that I think people are really interested in is the broadcast piece. And that basically gives us access to YouTube TV. And through this type of a buy, and it is on a more kind of reserved basis. So we definitely want to get those reservations secured well in advance of the actual buy. This allows us to basically use your video content. Again, it could be the same video that you're running on normal YouTube ads, let's say in that in-stream environment, into this live TV or DVR specific inventory as a real commercial. So this allows us to really extend any sort of broadcast buys that you might already have going on, or it allows you to actually have a broadcast type buy with more efficiency than what that normal broadcast buy would normally take, as well as some preliminary kind of audience targeting opportunities that we can layer on top, which is fantastic. We are limited there. AJ will go into more details about that in a little bit, but it still allows us to get that ad into kind of people's living room in that environment. This is great for, kind of that September, October, November environment where live sports are really going to be key, and this allows us to kind of access that inventory. A couple of kind of conversion-based opportunities I wanted to mention. We don't run this a ton for political often because these are really focused on generating kind of conversion volume. And so we need a trackable tag placed on the website in order to optimize to these specific placements. But I wanted to make mention of them because they do contain YouTube ads as part of their inventory. So starting with demand gen, it does exactly what it sounds. The goal of a demand gen campaign is really to drive overall demand or consideration for your brand, product, or candidate. And so this runs across a variety of different ad options within Google. So not just YouTube, but also the Discover feed, which is part of kind of the google.com homepage or the Google app, as well as even Gmail, and allowing us to actually look and feel like a sponsored email in a user's Gmail account. And then Performance Max basically does the same thing, but takes it to the next level. It runs on all inventory that Google has available, and it's really trying to optimize to a very efficient cost per acquisition from whatever type of tag or event that we want to be optimizing towards. Not great for awareness, not great for consideration. Fantastic if you have some sort of a newsletter sign up or some sort of an action on your website that you're trying to get done with this audience. So all of that said, all of those ad types really run in two main campaign types. So we have the video reach campaign type and the video views campaign type. They're both amazing. And really the biggest difference here is that the video reach campaign type is great for persuasion. It's going to be fantastic for those candidate bio ads or those contrast opponent ads. Whereas video view is a little bit more consideration based, phenomenal for more of those get the vote out type promotions. They actually have very similar inventory options, and I've put in my recommended video ad options as well as the lengths here. This is really the kind of the lengths and the spots that we've seen perform best over the last couple of years. But again, we're not beholden to any of this. You have a 48-second spot. We can still take advantage of that in the YouTube environment. The biggest difference between both of these campaign types is really how they're bought. So the video reach campaigns are bought on a dynamic CPM. Of course, our team is managing what that CPM looks like to ensure that we're getting a really nice mix of efficiency, but still quality overall audience exposure, as well as the content we're running on. Where video views is bought on a dynamic cost per completed view. So if you're really looking to really kind of maximize your impressions, but you only want to pay when a user completes the entire video up to 30 seconds, that's really going to be more fitting for the video views campaign. Now, one additional option that technically is not a video ad opportunity, but it makes so much sense to put into this kind of overview that we're going through today is, and it's very new, is YouTube CTV pause ads or their pause experience. So this is, like I mentioned, relatively new. We actually had the opportunity to beta test this before it's kind of bigger rollout, and it's still rolling out in certain areas. But this allows us to display a kind of what I would call a display or image ad when a user has paused their YouTube video on their TV screen. So a user has to pause their screen for about 10 seconds, and then this ad will pop up, and then it'll stay there the entire time until they resume their video. So another really nice way to kind of extend the reach of a specific message that we're trying to get out in a specific time. And this is also purchased on the cost per thousand or CPM. And so it allows us to really start to bid on different audiences or geo targets and try to have this pause ad experience served as much as possible. Excellent. Well, that was a lot. Happy to answer more questions or go through more details, but the Basis team, especially via an RFP, is more than happy to strategize and really make sure of all the ad types and campaign types I just went through, what is really going to be the best to really fulfill your engagement and overall campaign goals. So I'm actually going to turn it over to AJ, who's going to talk through some of the targeting and strategy considerations.
Yep, just one question came in, AJ, before you dive in. Just a quick, we'll take one just because it dropped in, Robert. It was from Katie. Do you know if YouTube reports a click on a skip button towards CTR, or do they not report CTRs on skippable, ads, like the non-skip? How do they kind of handle that in terms of attribution? Is it like, because technically you're clicking on it? I don't know. It's like any kind of insight there or something we can follow
Absolutely.
up on
So
that?
as long as you hit that skip button, it is not counted as a skip or engagement. And the great thing, if
Okay.
you're running skippable ads, usually you're running in that video views campaign type, which is bought on a cost per completed view. So people who are skipping, you're actually not even paying for that ad engagement at all. You're only paying for somebody who chooses not to skip and watches the completed video up to 30 seconds. So if you're running a 3-minute video, the cost will be incurred, or that view will be incurred at the 30-second mark. But other than that, no, that it's you still have to engage with the ad, click on the ad, be brought to the landing page if we have one of those, behind the scenes, in order to actually be counted as a click through.
Awesome. Thank
Mhm.
you. Okay.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so thanks, Robert. As was mentioned earlier, there are some restrictions though when you buy on YouTube that are going to be different than what you get on other formats like on connected TV or in-stream video from on the programmatic side. So there's you're restricted on the demographics just to age, gender, household income. So you can't layer on any third-party audience segments or your own first-party data. So if you're familiar with using voter files that you onboard to target off of for like connected television. That unfortunately that is not available here. Um, and then on the geography side, there are some restrictions there as well, but zip code, city, DMA, state, country. But you can do congressional districts. If you're working in House races, that is still some good news that you can still restrict to the congressional district. Um, and most of the targeting that is available is what we would call contextual targeting. So you can do it on ad placements, topics, so kind of like what the content that they're looking at. So maybe if it's your candidate is strong on like for a Second Amendment person, you can target channels that like discuss weapons and stuff like that. Or if you're someone who's like involved in environmentalism, you can target ones that talk about green energy and electric cars, for instance. And of course, you can do keywords kind of like in search. So when people are searching for stuff on YouTube, which is a very popular place to do search, you can use keywords that can advertise against people looking for within that list. Um, and then on the stuff that they don't allow, so like in market, affinity, detailed demographics. So again, you can't do like gender or excuse me, race or ethnicity, and life events. And then this is just a couple of examples of like topic targeting that you would be able to do within YouTube. There's some similarities from both, but you just have to like kind of think about what your audience is consuming and then choose those type of topics that make sense. And then these are some examples of like the channels that you could choose from. Of course, you're not restricted to what's on the screen. But it's just to give you an idea of like the channels that you could use to base where your audience is. And then here's some like keyword targeting examples, pro-choice, liberal candidates, liberal voting, pro-life, conservative. But there's a lot of commonality between voters on the right and left in terms of like what they're looking at, but just kind of like how they value it in this graphic here from Pew Research Center.
Yeah,
And with
absolutely.
that, I'll kick it back to Robert here to go over kind of the policies to be able to run ads on Google.
Definitely. We told you what you can start to target, what you can't target. We'll kind of tell you why that is. So Google obviously is trying to kind of protect what they think is the democratic process and keep that trust and transparency in place on their platform, kind of protecting themselves, protecting the users, and they're also trying to comply with federal and state laws. And our team is experts in that in terms of setting up what the right message is, making sure that ads aren't being disapproved, or if they are, what type of edits or quick tweaks could perhaps ensure that we can push through specific ads to our target audience. One thing I do want to go through real quick is, how does YouTube define an election ad? Because a lot of folks may think that their ad is actually not political or election oriented, but It's a very wide bucket here, so just wanted to kind of level set on what that looks like. They're really a current or either a current or a potential candidate for office of some sort of political type. Um, there's kind of more of the federal, state, or territory level political party. That's going to be even your local political parties as well. So anything that relates even to those, regardless if it's actually pushing out a specific candidate bio or even a contrast type ad, still is going to fall under this kind of purview. And then any sort of ballot measure, initiative, proposition, anything that's likely to be voted on or drive awareness of is going to fall under these restrictions as well. So we just want to try to get in front of that as best as possible. There is a great resource on the Google Ads Transparency Center. So if you go to adstransparency.google.com, you're actually able to look up your competitors and see when they were running, what videos they were running, and approximately how much they were spending. So that helps you both the client and ourselves get an idea of potential budget spend, how much we're going to need to lean into specific video messaging, content, things like that. So one thing that we do need to do before we're running a political ad is we need to make sure that that account through Google Ads is verified. And we'll walk you through the steps specifically when we're ready to go through this process, because it does vary, especially if there's state or local regulations that we also need to look at besides more of the kind of federal verification that we need to abide by anyway. So Basis will actually create the Google Ads account if we don't already have one created from a prior engagement. And then we'll make sure that that account is certified. And so there's some information that the client or you will have to help actually insert into this verification form that we'll provide via Google. And it's really just kind of the FIC numbers or your EIN number, the name of the representative that we're promoting, the email address, organization name, details like that. So nothing super specific, but it gives Google an idea of really who's paying, what the message is, kind of what the opportunity for this political initiative is. That way they can record it for their purposes. So all of that said, as we wrap up today's session, again, happy to answer any questions as we go through the next couple of slides in the wrap-up piece. But really, we kind of want to leave you with some considerations as we approach this busy election cycle, and really kind of looking at, well, how did 2024 perform and what can we expect in 2026, especially over that fall time period? Advertising costs, especially on YouTube and other channels, when we look back at 2024, actually increased based on the high demand that we saw by about 20 to 50% at times. Now, it depends on the audience and how we're targeting the type of ad units that we're running. But it's an extremely crowded space, notwithstanding just the normal kind of early Q4 type of engagement that brands are really looking to generate during that time. So nothing new that you don't already know. It's a crowded space, and we want to get in front of that, but just level setting in terms of really the price premiums that we potentially could expect. And this even goes even more so towards that premium content like YouTube Select and YouTube TV. In fact, going back a couple of years, YouTube TV inventory sold out. Couldn't even access it if you wanted to, regardless how much you're willing to pay. And so with those types of more premium opportunities, we really want to secure those buys well in advance of the go live date, just to make sure that we're able to then basically claim that inventory so that we're not left out in the cold if we're trying to do a quick turn opportunity. Luckily, with normal YouTube ads, there's never going to be a sellout. The massive scale of YouTube allows us to be able to really reach our target consumer based on any time we want to be able to advertise. There might be some fluctuations in that cost premium, but we'll keep that under control and obviously be transparent based on what we're seeing in the marketplace and what we're really looking at from an efficiency and kind of cost standpoint there. And then when it comes to the verification piece, we want to make sure that we're approaching that as early as possible. Of course, you don't always know if a candidate or an initiative wants to do a very quick turn buy. We can definitely try to accommodate those based upon kind of the turnaround times and expedite that with Google as possible. But the more that we can get in front of it, and just having the account certified, ready to go, even prior to the buy, is really going to help us make sure that we can turn on that initiative as quickly as possible, as well as rotate in creative swaps, messaging, and even some ad updates if we're seeing better performance in one ad type versus the other. Whew, that was a mouthful. Well, I'll turn it back to Sean and let him wrap us up. And then, like I said, happy to answer any questions in a couple moments.
Awesome. Thanks. So we covered a lot in the last 35 minutes. I'll be specific. Robert covered a lot. So thank you, Robert and AJ. You know what? So as we wrap up, hey, as Robert articulated, we have a variety of ways we hope to help, whether hey, want to learn more about anything we covered here. We have a dedicated media team that we talked about who are buying everything from Instagram to podcasts to YouTube. We have preferred pricing, full service support. We will give our contacts in a couple slides. And what we want to do is we want to be a resource for you as you kind of move forward the election cycle. You can go next slide. And last but not least, we have any questions here, feel free to drop it in the chat. We wanted to be cognizant of everybody's time and try to keep this session. We were hoping to finish around 45 minutes, and we're right around there. What I just say, we'll give it a second. If no one has any questions, we will wrap up.
Yeah, just going through some of the comments I see, I couldn't see those earlier, but in terms of like minimum size of channels, like we'll need a minimum 7 channels in order to even trigger ads. And I would say 7 channels is the volume is going to be extremely low. So the more channels and kind of videos that we can specify, the better. The ideal opportunity is not specifying channels unless we really need to, and really letting kind of YouTube find the ideal audience. But we definitely have that opportunity. It can intermingle both, a little bit more of a broader exposure and then focusing on specific channels or videos.
Great. Okay, well, we will wrap up. Last slide, you can flip over, Robert. Everybody who joined today, thank you. You will be receiving a cool badge from the Basis comms and marketing team saying that you attended this session. And we will also be following up with a video link to it and the actual presentation. One ask is if you found this at all helpful, I would just ask that you share this with one person. It's the best way. Word of mouth is still the best way to get out there in terms of the services. And if you found this session helpful, we will be continuing. My email is seanduggan@basis.com. Our next session is going to be in early March, winning with audio. Again, we will email everybody out who joined this session so you can know when it is. And please reach out to us. What Robert emphasized and AJ, what we talked about here is a lot of the tools of YouTube has that's great, but it's challenging. It's how much should I allocate? How much, hey, we have these voter lists. What should I do with them? There's a lot of variables out there, and what we are committed to is helping you navigate those things, whether you need help with the buying, planning, or just to soundboard, hey, what you're working on, we're happy to be there and help you along the way. And thank you, everybody, for joining. We are super stoked that you could be with us this morning, and we are looking forward to see you in March. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.